It's my home.
You think they're going to drive you out of there?
I hope not. I don't even want to think about it as a hometown. People ask me where my hometown is, I'm going to tell them somewhere else.
Lots of things can be replaced, but, you get to thinking about pictures, letters. Those things can't be brought back. They can't be bought.
Tonight, a special edition of A Current Affair from the ashes of an American tragedy. Good evening, everyone. I'm Maury Povich, and welcome to this special edition of A Current Affair. We know them now as the Ray family. Their life, indeed their hopes, gutted by the most sinister and modern of American tragedies, AIDS, and all that goes with it: fear, misunderstanding, distrust. Our Steve Dunleavy is at the Arcadia, Florida scene of a family's ruins tonight. Steve?
Yes, Maury, this is a house where the Rays once lived with their 3 children. Town's dignity, its humanity. The ugly story started about a year ago in this town of 6,000 people, but it really got ugly last week.
First, there were boycotts at school. Other parents refusing to send their children to school with the Ray children. When that failed to chase away Ricky, Robert, and Randy, bomb threats closed the school. And Friday night, the last straw for the Ray family. A fire gutted their house and destroyed any future they had in the town of Arcadia. The neighbor who discovered the fire smelled gasoline. There were no serious injuries in the blaze. The children were not home. But what perished in the fire was the family's will to fight hate and prejudice in this small Florida town.
It hurts to think everything that we had, which wasn't really much, is gone. I mean, we haven't, we haven't a house, we haven't a town, we don't even have a county anymore.
I think that the biggest thing is that fear can breed so many different things. Fear can make people do crazy things, as we've seen.
We are going to go back to Steve Dunleavy in Arcadia, Florida, a little later on, where he has gathered the priest of the town, the sheriff, a housewife, and an eyewitness to that fire. But A Current Affair was invited to share the Rays' grief as their week of torment unfolded, from the boycotts and bomb threats to that final fire tragedy that has driven them from the town of Arcadia. Inside the Ray family ordeal after this. Arcadia, Florida was the scene of a tragic battle. The most tragic aspect of all was that it is likely only one of similar battles, many of them, to be fought all over this country in the years ahead. The Ray family, their 3 innocent sons, unwanted in school because of their exposure to the AIDS virus. Parents of other children, fearful of the decision they must make to protect. Neither side really guilty of more than excessive love for their own offspring. Tonight's story is one of the nightmare endured by the Ray family during the past week, and many others before it. Our producer, Raphael Abramovitz, was invited into their ordeal during the worst hours of the past 5 days. He observed an extraordinary family in extraordinary circumstances.
These people aren't anything like what they look like. These people are something very, very special. The love they have for one another and the love they have for their children is something that most of us would envy. They seem to have a relationship, and they seem to have a strength, and they seem to support one another in ways that I think few couples in America could equal. They're both very religious. In fact, they met in church. She used to sing in church, and he attended. They dated for about 6 months, and then they got married, and everybody said it wouldn't last. Everybody prophesied it wouldn't last. Well, 11 years or so later, they're still married, and the people who prophesied are all divorced. They're people that get hit and then stand up again. They stand up in ways that surprise you. You wouldn't think anyone could take that kind of pain and that kind of incessant horror and manage to get up in the morning. But they do. Do you ever think about why me?
I wonder sometimes, but like I said, I've got a real strong faith in the Lord, and He's always said that He would never give you more than you could bear. I mean, sometimes I feel like my knees are dragging the ground, but there's always something that comes along to pull you up. And I just think it's important just to live each day to the fullest. A lot of people laugh because alcoholics say, I'm not going to drink today. They don't think about yesterday. They don't worry about tomorrow. I'm not going to drink today. It's the same thing with my kids. I'm not going to dwell on the fact that they could die, because if I did, I'd have to put me in a mental institution. And I'm not going to dwell on the fact that, well, if I had only, because that's the same way. We're going to take one day at a time. We're going to live it. We're going to do everything we can in that one day. When I go to bed, I can know, hey, we lived it to the fullest. And that's the only way we can do it.
I got 3 great boys, a pretty little girl, and a wife that takes care of me. What more can a man ask for?
I was struck by their eloquence. I was struck by their sense of understanding. They understood the people in the town in ways that I don't think the people in town understand them.
You know, people say, well, the Rays are causing this community to look bad. I ain't said nothing about that community looking bad. That's my home. I went to school there. I have friends there. I was raised there. I'd like to see the people take a real concern in wanting to know the truth. I mean, I seen a little cartoon not too far back. It was a guy holding a book and papers and all, and a woman standing there looking at the papers saying, now, who do you believe, me or the facts? And basically this is what's happened in Arcadia. Everybody's yelling it's leading this opposition. Who do you believe, me or the facts? I mean, the medical people, the specialists, have stated my children pose no threat. I've been tested, my wife's been tested. We don't have it. My little girl doesn't have it. If it don't affect us, who's it going to affect? I mean, I'm not Superman. And my wish is just that the people in Arcadia that oppose us would understand.
Arcadia has got a lot of good people, a lot of them. But you have a few, a very loud, vocal minority who can make it really difficult. And those are the ones that we want to reach and we want to educate.
Last Thursday night, I remember talking to Mr. and Mrs. Ray, and Mr. Ray confided in me and said that the oldest boy, Ricky, had come to him and said, Dad, I can't do it anymore. This was Wednesday night. I can't do it anymore, Dad.
I asked him, I said, you want to keep on going with this fight? And he kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit, and I told him, I said, if you don't, it's up to you and your brothers. He said, can I talk with my brothers? I said, yeah, go talk with them. So they went and talked, and later I went in, they said, we don't want to keep the fight up any longer. I told him, I said, that's fine. You sure? He said, well, yeah, I think so. I said, I tell you what, you make sure, then you tell me. I said, take one more day of school and see what it's like. It can't kill you. And if you don't like it after you come home after one more day of school, we're gone. Because I want you to be sure before we go. I don't want you to say later that you want to come back and start it, because it's going to be too late. So he got up this morning, went to school, come home this evening and said, no, I don't want to leave. I want to stay here. So until he comes up definite, I don't want him to jump a decision, but I don't want to force him to do something he don't want to do either. If he'd have come home tonight from school and said, I don't want to do it no more, it'd have been over with. We would have just packed our stuff and faded into the woodwork.
So during the daylight hours on Friday, hope was still in the hearts of the Ray family. But nobody could have imagined the extent of the tragedy that was to follow. And we'll have that after this. So for most of last week, the boycott of the Arcadia school by parents of those children who attended the same school of the Ray's sons. But by Friday, it was called off. The town seemed to be returning to normal. There was hope that this outcast family would have a future after all. But that hope would be short-lived. Our producer, Raphael Abramovitz, found a different mood when he visited the Rays over the weekend after the fire.
The last time I spoke to you, you thought you had somehow won a victory. And
we did win a victory. We didn't lose. Then people didn't, the school board, they did their best to keep my children out of school. My children spent a week in their school. They didn't like it, but they spent a week in their school. That's a victory. That's a victory and a half. That's something that they can't say they beat me. They didn't. And they still haven't beat me. Maybe I'm leaving, but they haven't heard the last of me. I guarantee you they haven't heard the last from me. I'm not going to do nothing illegal or nothing like that, but I'm going to take whatever the law courses give me to get what's mine.
We might not be so lucky next time. You know, we might have been home, one of the kids might have been injured, and there's nothing more important to me than my kids. I mean, I want them to go to school and I want them to be educated, but I'm not willing to risk their life for it, under no circumstances.
Now, where are you going to go?
At this point, we really don't know. I just know that I'm not going back to DeSoto.
Ever?
We have a few relatives that I might visit, but as far as to live, no, because I no longer view that as my hometown. I don't have a hometown anymore.
My youngest boy had a monkey collection, and the first monkey he ever had, he named him Mr. Monkey. And he cried last night, and he told me, he said, "Daddy, I want Mr. Monkey." And I made a deal with him that I would hunt and find Mr. Monkey, and if there was, enough there, that we would have a funeral set for Mr. Monkey if we could. Because I told him, I said, "Randy, you realize Mr. Monkey was, all the animals are just stuffed. They didn't feel nothing." He said, "No, you're wrong, Daddy. Mr. Monkey was alive, and he felt."
What are you thinking about?
Just all the things that are gone.
Like what?
Lots of things can be replaced, but, you get to thinking about pictures, letters. Those things can't be brought back. They can't be bought. And I guess really that's the hardest, is to know that. My dad disappeared in 1975. I have no idea where he is. The last gift that he gave me was in that house. And that's the only thing that I ever had left from him. Things like that, people cannot ever replace. And that's what hurts the most.
What was it like for you to be in that house and hunting for things that were part of your life?
It was hard emotionally, because there's a lot of memories in the house. Like me and my little brother went in and talked, and there's a lot of memories. We were raised in that house. It's not just artifacts. There's memories of growing up there, of good times, bad times, hard times, easy times. And it all was right in that house. And
what's the message in all of this?
I think that the biggest thing is that fear can breed so many different things. Fear can make people do crazy things, as we've seen. And I think the biggest thing is if this county would have educated the public like they should have, none of this would have happened. How many other children out there today are hiding in seclusion because of the same reason that my boys have gone through this? And after what's happened to us, you couldn't blame them if they never stepped forward. That's part of what we've been fighting for, is to get people to see that these kids can't hurt you. They can't hurt anybody. And I'm going to continue that. I'm going to continue to try to educate, whether it's DeSoto County or wherever I live. I think that that's the main thing, is that people need to learn. And until they do, you're going to continue to see, I don't want to use the word vigilante, but you know, that's what comes into my mind. You're going to continue to see actions like that. And you know, this is America, and we should stand proud and try to live together and to be strong. And you know, fighting amongst each other is not ever going to help.
You know, you told me that one thing that was comforting you when you first found out about the problem, you were speaking to the minister, was from Romans, I believe, remember?
Yeah.
What was that?
That all things work together for the good that love him. And I believe that. I mean, I don't at this point know what the reason is for the house burning or for us leaving. Maybe it's just because we're going to get a new start and you know, start over again. I don't know.
What's it going to be like for you to be uprooted like that from a town that you grew up in, from a town that your family is from a town where your house was? Have any thoughts about that?
I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to think about it as a hometown. People ask me where my hometown is, I'm going to tell them somewhere else. I don't know.
What do you think is going to happen in the next town?
Well, I'm going to know something about the next town before I move into it. I'm going to know how they feel about us. I'm going to know how they feel about the children. I'm not going to move into another town unless they will accept us. And there's a place for us out there somewhere. Somewhere.
And maybe there is. In fact, this might be a watershed event in the fear of AIDS regarding the Ray children and any other children. Another story happening 1,000 miles away. There just might be hope. Many of us remember Ryan White. He was that young AIDS victim who fought so hard to return to school in Kokomo, Indiana. Well, he returned to school today, not in Kokomo, but in another town, ironically called Arcadia, Indiana. He was greeted warmly by his fellow students. Of the 650 kids in that high school, only 17 were absent. And now let's go back to Arcadia, Florida, with Steve Dunleavy, our reporter there, and the people that he has gathered. Steve?
Yes, Maury, I'm here with a group of the townspeople. First, I'll introduce Father Michael Hickey. He's a local Catholic priest. Father, not a proud day for Arcadia.
Well, I feel really that the whole situation reminds me somewhat of the way the lepers were treated in the Middle Ages in the time of Christ. People were afraid, scared, and they shunned them. I think this is what is happening here, that people need to be more aware and open their hearts to these people.
A bad commentary for 1987. Also, housewife Beth Staton. Now, Beth Staton was a housewife who supported the boycott of the Ray children. How do you feel now, Beth, about the boycott?
I still feel the same as I did. The fire has been terrible for everyone, but it does not change the fight that we have against AIDS in school. We still want to stop it.
You really believe that your children could catch AIDS from the Ray children?
No one has told me definitely that they could not, 100%, without any doubt.
Well, back to the fire. We have Sheriff Joe Varnador here. Sheriff Joe, any suspects right now?
Not at the moment. We're still investigating. We have about 8 men investigating and working on it now.
I believe the feds have come into the investigation. Is that correct?
I've been in contact with them, yes, sir.
Now, I did hear earlier that the suspect list had narrowed.
It's somewhat. However, we don't actually have a suspect. We're looking at quite a few people, and we will continue to do so until we get something.
Yes, now the first man on the scene, a neighbor, Marty Warmbold. Marty, tell us what you saw that night.
Well, as I approached my yard, which is right next door, I seen the flames burst out very high, approximately 30 feet high.
Did you see anyone who may be a suspect?
I can't really say. I really don't know. I don't know what the sheriff has on his list.
I understand. Now, you're a neighbor. How do you feel about your neighbor being burned out like this?
Well, I do not agree with the burnout. I think it's very low class. I don't know how anyone can treat any human being like this. I ran home immediately, grabbed my video camera, and I videotaped this entire fire.
Well, there we have it. Back to you, Maury, from Arcadia. Black day in Arcadia.
Yeah, thank you very much, Steve, but maybe it'll brighten up a bit later. As we all know now, the fire left the Ray family homeless, penniless. All they have are the clothes on their backs. A fund has now been established, the Ray Family Assistance Fund. If you want to help, this is the address, 1225 2nd Street, Sarasota, Florida, 34236. We'll be back after this. We are held hostage for time. We will give you that address for the Ray family again tomorrow. Join us then. Bye-bye, everyone.